In 1928, a woman named Catherine Donahue, one of the Radium girls, had to have her jaw removed due to radiation poisoning from painting watch faces with glow-in-the-dark paint. And even after the surgery, her jawbone continued to disintegrate, a constant reminder of the gruesome fate that awaited her. This was just the beginning of a long and painful struggle for Catherine and many other female factory workers who suffered the same fate. But here's where it gets dark. The companies they worked for knew about the dangers of radium and chose to ignore them, prioritizing profits over the lives of their employees. The story of the Radium girls begins in the early 20th century, specifically in 1917, when hundreds of women were employed to paint watch faces with glow-in-the-dark paint containing radium at factories like the United States Radium Corporation in New Jersey and the Waterbury Clock Company in Connecticut. These women, mostly teenagers, were instructed to moisten their brushes with their tongues to achieve a fine point, thereby ingesting small amounts of radium daily. Nobody talks about this part, but the women were actually encouraged to paint their nails and faces with the glow-in-the-dark paint, which made them glow in the dark, earning them the nickname glowworms. And this is where everything fell apart. As the years went by, these women began to suffer from severe health issues, including radiation poisoning, anemia, and bone cancer. As the women's health began to deteriorate, they started to experience mysterious illnesses, and by the early 1920s, many of them had developed severe bone necrosis, disfiguring jaw and facial deformities, and even death. But here's the thing, the companies they worked for refused to take responsibility for their illnesses, claiming that the women were suffering from syphilis or other diseases. The women, however, knew that their illnesses were related to their work with radium, and they began to fight for justice. In 1927, 5 former dial painters from the United States Radium Corporation, including Catherine Donahue, sued their former employer, claiming that the company had knowingly exposed them to toxic substances. And this is where it gets even darker. The company hired doctors to testify that the women's illnesses were not caused by radium, and even went so far as to pay off some of the women to keep quiet. The case of the Radium girls gained national attention, and in 1928, the women won their lawsuit, with the court ruling that the United States Radium Corporation was responsible for their illnesses. But the victory was bittersweet. Many of the women had already died, and those who were still alive were left with severe health problems. The case led to changes in labor laws and worker safety regulations. But it also highlighted the dark history of corporate greed and the exploitation of female factory workers. Nobody talks about this part, but the Radium girls case was a major factor in the development of the Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, which regulates workplace safety and health standards. And this is where the story takes a disturbing turn. Even after the lawsuit, companies continue to use radium in their products. And it wasn't until the 1960s that the use of radium in consumer products was finally phased out. As the years went by, the story of the Radium girls was all but forgotten. But in recent years, there has been a renewed interest in their story, with books, documentaries, and films being made about their struggles. But here's the thing, the legacy of the Radium girls is still felt today, with many women still suffering from the effects of radiation poisoning and other work-related illnesses. And this is where it gets personal. The story of the Radium girls is a reminder that the fight for workers' rights and safety is ongoing, and that we must continue to push for justice and accountability. In 2017, on the 100th anniversary of the Radium girls case, a memorial was dedicated to the women in Orange, New Jersey, a testament to their bravery and sacrifice. And this is where the story comes full circle. The Radium girls case may have started as a local tragedy, but it has become a symbol of the global struggle for workers' rights and justice. The climax of the Radium girls story came in 1938, when Catherine Donahue, one of the original plaintiffs, died of cancer, her body so radioactive that her burial site had to be marked with a warning sign. This was the ultimate tragedy. A woman who had fought for justice and accountability had ultimately succumbed to the very things she was fighting against. And this is where the story becomes a cautionary tale. The Radium Girls case is a reminder of the dangers of unchecked corporate power and the importance of protecting workers' rights. The aftermath of the Radium Girls case was marked by a renewed focus on worker safety and labor regulations. But it also highlighted the need for continued vigilance and activism. In the end, the Radium Girls story is a testament to the power of courage and resilience in the face of overwhelming adversity. The Radium Girls case may have been settled, but the impact of their story is still felt today. The use of radium in consumer products has been largely phased out, but the legacy of the Radium Girls continues to inspire activists and advocates for workers' rights. And this is where the story becomes a call to action. We must continue to push for justice and accountability to ensure that the sacrifices of the Radium Girls are not forgotten. The Radium Girls story is a dark and disturbing reminder of the dangers of corporate greed and the importance of protecting workers' rights. Subscribe for more stories like this, and join us next time as we explore more of the dark history that lies just beneath the surface.